Hey, what's up guys? I'm here with another video today. In this video, I am doing like a test hands and combos video for my Nordic deck profile that I did on the channel a little while ago. So it's going to be the exact same deck that I did the profile on. Obviously, there are ways to make changes to the deck, but just for the sake of consistency, I'm going to profile the exact same deck I made, or I'm going to do test hands for the same exact deck that I profiled, and then obviously you can feel free to make whatever changes you want to make that you see fit. So yeah, for this, I'm just going to do like a few different test hands, show off some of the combos you can pull in this deck. It's pretty fun. One of my favorite decks that I own, actually, even though it's not like the most competitive, but you know, it's very fun. So that's what matters, right? All right. And for all of these like test hands and stuff, I'm going to go with the assumption that you're going first and your opponent doesn't have hand traps, just because obviously there's not another deck or anything playing across from me. So yeah, let's get into this. So this is our first hand. This is pretty good. So there's a few ways you could go with this. Rescue Cat gets you 2 free on the board, but you don't really need that. Alvis has a good effect when he's the only card banished, but that's not super applicable right now. So what I would probably do here is normal summon Alvis. You link it off, go extra deck, link into Golveg. And now Golveg has the effect that you can banish 3 cards from your hand or face up on the field. So I'd go... for the sake, since we don't have like an opponent, I'm gonna like banish the hand traps like imperms and stuff because we're just doing first turn combos. But obviously you'd probably want to keep this in an actual game. So I guess since we're simulating an actual game, I'll continue with that. So I'm gonna banish these 3 cards, and then you search for 3 from your deck and summon them. So I'll go. This is my hand, I think. So I'm going to go with a Smith Evaldi, Golan Bursty, and that's 7. So we'll go like that. So now with this, you have 1 effect on summon. So Evaldi's effect on summon lets you search for a Nordic relic. So I'm going to add this Nordic relic, Hilitsgolf. I don't know how you say that, but and then Golan Bursty, his effect on summon lets you special summon a Nordic from your hand. So if you wanted to, you could have kept your Vanadis, but you wouldn't have been able to make another rank 10, or not rank 10, level 10 anyway, unless you had somehow been able to also keep the Monster Reborn, which you couldn't do. So well, we're going to use Golan Bursty has a second effect. Actually, we're not going to use that because we don't need Alvis on the field, so don't worry about either of those effects right now because you don't have any additional place to make you just level 10. And since we have the Beast in the graveyard, even though it can be used as any tuner for like any of the Nordics, we're going to go into Thor just to give him that revive effect, and then probably set Imperm and pass. Now, the nice thing about this, with this setup, your opponent cannot attack this Link monster, your opponent cannot target Thor with card effects, and you have the Imperm to negate one opponent's monster effect. Obviously, Thor has the self-revive, and Alvis also has an effect that when if your Thor ends up being destroyed, here, let me just find the card, I'll just show it to you guys on screen here. So it has a second effect that if an Aesir monster in your possession is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard and special summon an Aesir from your extra deck with a different name. It can only use this effect once per duel. So if your opponent happened to out Thor, let me get the focus. If your opponent happened to out Thor, you could banish Alvis, go into Odin or Loki. Since you can actually go into Odin in the deck, I would probably just go into your Loki. Just because otherwise you can't really bring him out. So, and then at the end of your turn, you would banish Golan Bursty and bring Thor back. So that's just if your opponent gets over Thor, which, I mean, Thor has a lot of attack points, but it is possible to get over these guys. But that's just one potential test hand. The hard part about this deck is it's really just bringing out one big guy a turn. And that, like, for your first turn, then after that, once you get more effects going, like we had the Relic in our hand, so that's a free special summon. We had the Alvis in the graveyard, and obviously depends on our next draw. So like as you get going with this deck, more turns in, it can go a little bit faster. But really, the premise of this deck is just getting one of the gods out each turn. Like it's not super advanced, so it's hard to do a profile for this because a lot of the interactions happen during your opponent's turn, like the Alvis effect, or like there's some other like Nordic relic traps and stuff in the deck. The self-revive effects. Obviously, there's like a lot of interactions in this deck, so it's hard to really demonstrate them all. All right, with this hand, okay. So there are some plays here. This is a good card. So Gleipnir's effect is you can add a Nordic monster from deck to hand. It's just a trap you can use whenever. Let me focus there. Yeah. So what I'm thinking here, I'm going to, okay. So I'm going to normal summon, whoops, let me get the focus there. I'm going to normal summon Gulen Bursty. Its effect on summon will let me special summon Tangrisnir. I'm going to link off the goat into Golveg, and then Golveg's effect to banish 3, special summon 3 from deck. So I'm going to go into Vanadis, Evaldi, and let's see. I'm going to go into this goat as well. So with this on board, now what we can do on summon, Evaldi lets me search for a relic. So I would search for this. And obviously I'm doing this all under the assumption that your opponent doesn't have a hand trap. Obviously there's a lot of summoning and searching in the deck, so one like Ash Blossom or whatever isn't the end of the world, but it obviously will slow down your plays a little bit. So just for this, since I don't have another deck that I'm really going against, for lack of a better term, I'm just going to go into the assumption of no hand traps. Next, Gulen Bursty's effect lets me bring back Tangrisnir. Then I'm going to tune these 3 to make 10, going into a Thor here, and then using the effect of the relic, we can special summon a Nordic from our deck, but we can't special summon except Aesir for the rest of the turn, which is fine. So we have 7 on board, so we'll go into another 3. I'm going to pull out one of the goats here. And the goats are essentially just synchro fodder. They don't really serve another purpose in the deck, so you don't have to really worry about sending them all to the graveyard. It's not the end of the world. And now that's 10. So with these 3, I will synchro into Odin, like so. So this was actually a really good starting hand because you got 2 out on the 1 turn. And this is also really nice because, again, Odin, since Golveg only has the 1 link arrow, so Odin can't be targeted by card effects. Thor is still pretty vulnerable, though. But during your turn, you can negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls with Thor, and you can make Odin unaffected by spells and traps. They both have their revive effects, obviously. And since you have a Nordic Ascendant to revive Odin with, and a Nordic Beast to revive Thor with, you can bring them both back. So yeah, this would be like an ideal start turn, obviously, assuming your opponent doesn't have hand traps and whatnot. But yeah, this deck is very consistent with bringing out at least 1. Like I just showed, with an ideal hand, you can bring out 2. There's no actual way to summon out Loki in this deck without Alvis, because he's kind of the worst of the 3, and the Nordic Alpha tuners aren't great. So you could, I mean, you could bring him out because Vanadis, the Ascendant tuner, and the Golden Bursty, the Beast tuner, can substitute themselves for any of the 3 types of tuner. So it could be an Alfar, but Odin, or not Odin, Loki is kind of the one that I just bring him out with Vanadis effect because he's not like the best. Here I can. So Loki's effect. So I said like Thor's is the one that negates the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls until end of turn. Odin's makes him invincible to spell and trap effects. Loki's effect here. So once per turn, your opponent activates a spell or trap during the battle phase, you can negate the activation. So it's only during the battle phase, which is like, I mean, battle traps aren't really very common at this point. If it was just negating a spell or trap regardless, then that would be really good. But battle traps are scarce at this point. So I'm going to do one more test hand because we're already at about 11 minutes. So I'm going to do one more test hand example and probably call it a video here. But yeah, let me know like what other decks you want me to profile that I have on the channel. There are a few other decks in the works that I'm working on, but I'm running out of decks to profile at this point, and I don't buy new cards like super often, so I'm probably at this point just going to focus a little bit more on Master Duel until I get back to campus where I go to college, and then I can do some live duels and stuff there just because I know people that play the game up there. So look forward to some of that in the future, but for now it's looking like I'm going to be doing some combo videos and some Master Duel, maybe a deck profile here or there, because I do have a few more I can do. But yeah, there we go. That's 5. Whoops. So this is our hand. All right, this isn't bad actually because we have Hippo Carnival, so we don't have to actually banish anything for what's it called? Golveg. So to start with, I'm going to normal summon the goat. Whoops, that's not good. Didn't mean to do that. I'm gonna link off the goat, and like I said, this link play is pretty much an like your most important play. On summon, I'm going to chain Hippo Carnival. So what Hippo Carnival does is it'll bring out 3 Hippo tokens on your board, and since you're doing that on summon of Golveg, when Golveg is summoned, since it'll be the chain 1, and then you Hippo Carnival chain 2, Golveg will then banish your 3 tokens, and you can get 3 free searches out of it, which is really nice. So I'm going to go into Evaldi. I'm going to go into Golden Bursty, and I'm going to go into Alvis, actually. So the reason for that, now on summon, I get 2 effects, Golden Bursty 1 and Evaldi 2. So Evaldi will let me search a relic. Since we already have this relic in our hand, we're actually going to search for a different one. We're going to search for this one. So what this Nordic Relic Svalin does is when you control an Aesir monster, negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent controls until the end of the turn, and you contribute a Nordic monster and target an Aesir in your graveyard and special summon it. So that's pretty good. And then Golden Bursty's effect is the chain 1, so when it's summoned, I can special summon Vanadis, and then I can use the second effect once per turn. I believe it's once per turn, right? You can use each effect. Yes, you can use each effect once per turn, so I will special summon out the goat. And now I'm going to link these 3, so this makes, oops, there we go. This makes 10 here. And I'm going into, whoops. So since they can each substitute, I guess it doesn't really matter because we're going into the same 2 anyway. So I'm going to go into Odin, and then I'm going to play this relic to search for one from the deck, and we're actually going to go into Mimir, the Nordic Ascendant, because it's a level 2, so that kind of works out for another level 10. And yeah, since they substitute for each other, I brought out the Odin first. It doesn't really matter. If you want to keep the Odin protected from card effects, that's a thing too. I'm going to go into Thor there. But since you have the Svalin, you can negate your opponent's card effects. So then you set 2. and at this point you would pass. Now, the nice thing about this board is, again, you have the 2 revives of, you have your Vanadis and Gulin Bursty in graveyard for your revives, but you also have Alvis in your graveyard. So in a perfect world where your opponent just can't get over this board somehow, assuming they're not playing like, you know, some of the like the best decks in the format, which is definitely possible. But there is technically a world where you have like, oh shoot, I keep hitting this thing. That's my bad. Where you have this card face up to negate your opponent's card effects, and you could have like all 3 of these out by your next turn, because you could, if one of these gets sent to the graveyard, which you can obviously bring them back, and then you banish Vanadis and bring out your Loki. That's pretty good. But yeah, so this is like, that's not part of this. So this is like your end board. This would still be face down because it's your turn. So you have no more cards in your hand, which is fine, because this lets you search for one, and then even if one of these gets sent to the graveyard and you can't bring it back, you could then tribute that card with Svalin's effect and bring back one of your Aesir monsters. So yeah, and then obviously it depends on what you draw for your next turn, which is Monster Born, which is a pretty good card, because Golden Bursty has its 2 search effects, or 2 special summon effects. Evaldi has the search effect. So there's a lot of versatility with this deck. It's very good. Oh shit, I'm so sorry. It's a very good deck when it goes uninterrupted. Obviously that's not gonna happen very consistently. Hand traps are very prevalent in the Yu-Gi-Oh card game, so expect to get ashed here or there. It's just gonna happen eventually. Like, it's bound to happen at some point. However, the nice thing about this deck is that it can play through an Ash Blossom, because there's just so many different effects that search and special summon, and like it's a very powerful deck when things go right. And the nice thing, again, as long as you have a monster in your starting hand to summon, or a way to search for a monster, you can link away. And as long as you have 3 other cards to banish, which isn't always ideal, so you like to have Hippo Carnival, but even if that's not possible, you are guaranteed to at least have Golvig and a level 10 Nordic monster, as long as you have a monster to link away for Golvig, because your opponent can Ash Golvig, and if that happens, that sucks. But like I said, there are other effects that you can, like, you can use the Nordic relics to summon your Golden Bursty and special summon from hand, and there's just a lot of different effects you can do to like survive hand traps. So I'm rambling at this point, but this is one of my favorite decks to play, so I am kind of passionate about it. But that's gonna be it for this video. Let me know in the comments other profiles you want me to do combo videos for. As far as deck profiles go, I really only have like, I'm working on a branded Despia deck, but I still have cards coming in for that because it's kind of expensive. I have a Raid Raptor deck in the works and a Resonator / Red Dragon Archfiend deck in the works that I could profile at some point, sometime in the future. But yeah, just let me know about those, or I'll let you guys know about those, sorry. And let me know what decks you want me to do combo videos for. And if you enjoyed these types of videos, remember to like and subscribe. Like I said earlier, I'm trying to branch out into like maybe some Master Duel or some other games. I really don't know what I want to do yet, but I'll figure that out when the time comes. And thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.